Great news, we fixed the problem here. Reintroducing Mateusz, Olejarka.
Yeah, I hope it works. Sorry, I have like more, I thought I would have more time, so I'll be rushing a bit, but don't worry, I'm staying until the end of the conference, so if you have any questions or want to discuss things, I'm happy to do that after my talk. Complexity is one of the biggest challenges we face as a security industry, or IT industry in general. We have like different cloud providers, different VMs, containers, queues, APIs, microservices. From time to time, we add a new layer of abstraction, and it's harder to keep it secure. And since software is more embedded in our lives than ever, and nothing is going to change here anytime soon, it is getting more interesting as a target for criminals. My name is Mateusz Olejarka. I work in securing. I'm the principal security consultant and the head of web security. I did co-author a training for developers, and before I started my journey in security 10 years ago, I was a software developer myself. Somehow I developed interest in attacks on developers. I split that into three areas. Three areas: libraries, tools, and infrastructure. Getting to libraries, since MIT, there was a drawer in MIT, you could find the best algorithms they had and to borrow them. We do the same now, we call it libraries, just not to reinvent the wheel, and that's okay. But those libraries are a target for attacks now, and it got more complex. Sometimes when you want to install just one library, you might end up having 30 of them because that one library depended on something, which depended on something, etc. And you have to secure all of those dependencies, not just one, just the 30. Here is the catalog of the attacks. Some of them are new, some of them are things you know applied to other areas. Package managers is are the way we get packages, and most of them are console tools, and developers make typos. It's supposed to be Electron, but it was Electron instead. If you see this purple graph, it's like from Monday to the week back, it's like 32 errors done. 32 times this library was downloaded, even though it's locked for some time. To give you an example, just from this Monday, a Ment company identified a new NPM account which published more than 150 libraries impersonating in this attack using Typosquatting just to be downloaded instead of the original libraries. Sorry. Yeah. Can you move? Sorry. We were here. Yeah. So that was just Monday. That's one incident. Here is the catalog of techniques used in Typosquatting. So you see this not only misspelling. Sometimes you have a prefix, postfix. If there are a few words in the name, you have some ordering attacks, some different separators. All of that used to make developers install that instead of a proper original library. Another thing introduced in 2021, what you see here is a part of package.json file with dependencies. Those blue ones are in public NPM repository. Those in red, never mind the names, those red are private libraries developed by PayPal, and they should be available only from private PayPal's package repository. Researcher Alex Burson asks himself a very good question. What will happen if I will make a library with the same name and I will publish that publicly in public NPM repository. And he found out that his libraries were downloaded either by developers or CI/CD servers from PayPal. And it was not only PayPal. It was different package managers and different companies vulnerable to that. Just confusion from where I download library. It should be taken from private, not from public, but it appeared that that was wrong. Since from that, we have this confusion. He earned, I think, $100,000 in bug bounties using that vulnerability, and it's still around us today. This is classic phishing. We take a popular library. You might see you have like weekly downloads, almost 8 million, and we phish the maintainer, and we publish a new version. So let's have a very quick analysis what happened in this modified version. So of course, version bump. And the pre-install directive at the bottom, it was added, it will run during the package installation. So what does it do? It starts with OS detection. Mac OS users are safe. In Linux, it will happen something for Linux. In Windows, preinstall.bat will be executed. In Linux, the same, but sh. And let's dive into what will Linux script will do. First, we have geolocation. If you're in Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, or Kazakhstan, it won't work. Then you skip to this part. It will check if JS extension process is running. If it's not running, it will try with curl on wget, download this file, make it executable, and run it. This is a cryptocurrency miner, so pretty simple attack, maybe. And more or less the same will happen on Windows. Another example that these attacks are happening is from 2 weeks back. Again, Mend.io reported that a popular cryptocurrency exchange DYDX NPM account was hacked, and they published, I think, 4 versions of libraries this cryptocurrency maintains. So it's still a thing. Here is the idea of attack. Find an old, unused NPM package or another package, take over the expired domain, and recreate maintainer's email on NPM. But this is just the idea. The package it was connected to was for it, and the maintainer stated that, yes, of course, in the repository was my email on the domain that expired, but my NPM account is tied to a different domain. But this is still a way to take over something which was some library which is popular but not maintained anymore. Maybe some domain expired. And protestware, that's this new breed around, I think, March this year. What you see here is a for loop which will run indefinitely. This is denial of service. Basically, it will log something to the console, and that's it, and no stopping in this case. You may ask, what will AM do? AM displays this gentleman here, and the outer, because those changes, those malicious changes were introduced in Colors and Faker, those are popular libraries. The author doesn't like big corporations using his open source software, so he decided to protest in this way. And we have several examples of that. So imagine you use library and the author goes rogue. To give you some numbers, I took a quick look on Sonatype's blog. They publish weekly number of incidents they detected, and it appeared to me that there's almost 90 incidents per week in last month. So it's huge. They stated, I think, yesterday that they see in last 3 years, they see 700% increase in attacks on open source software. So that's an issue we are going to stay with in a few next years. It's not going anywhere. That was libraries. Going back to tools, I remember just using my IDE, which was Visual Studio, and you basically needed just that to make software. Now you have very complex CI/CD pipelines, very many tools included into creating of software. And few examples. Please notice that 3 of these examples are package managers. We discussed packages, now we go into package managers. On April's Fool, Codecov, which is tool responsible for dealing with code coverage, learned that they have an incident with their tool, which is called Bash Uploader. How they learned? Because of one of the customers downloaded the file, this is a file, and checked it, checksum, and indeed it matched the checksum published on Codecov website. Basically, this is the way you should use tool. This is from original docs. You basically curl it and run it without any kind of verification, so please don't do that. The file contains around 2,000 lines of code, which is pretty big bash script. That was just one line added by an attacker, and basically what he does here, he grabs environmental variables and sends those variables to his or her IP address. And now you might think, what the hell is Codecov? That was my thought back then. But to give an example, a lot of, as you see from this is one meme I have, a lot of companies are using that. Amongst others, there is Rapid7, who wrote incident response. You might know the Metasploit creator. And a bigger corporation, I think, is HashiCorp, which created Vault, Terraform, and several other very known tools. Those two companies, among others, were affected by this similarly funny incident. 2 comments from JCombinator, I think they are very good. Do not download thing and execute that immediately in every CA run. Just not once, but once like a day, for example. And verify your own checksum. If you publish something and you publish checksum, make sure that you verify them yourself. Another package manager, Homebrew, is a missing package manager for Mac. They have an automated pull request review, and researchers discovered that there was a flaw in the library they used to make the diff of files in a way that he could create a specific pull request to bypass that and to be accepted, which would execute running arbitrary code on machines using Homebrew. Fortunately for us and for Homebrew users, it was a researcher, not an attacker. Another incident in NPM itself, a vulnerability was reported to them that you could publish basically any package existing in NPM. Probably complexity here, as I discussed it in the beginning, popped in. You see we have microservices and inconsistent authorization and validation of data. So basically, you could publish package. What's funny, they state that since they have telemetry, which is around 2 years, they didn't see exploitation of this vulnerability, but before that, they don't know, and the vulnerability predates the timeline they have logs. Ruby Gems had an interesting also issue with package. If you could guess the next version number of a package to be published, you could craft invalid gem spec and publish your malicious code to S3, which will hold your package as the package you are spoofing. And later, of course, the proper package will overwrite your package in S3, unless you make the CDN cache it before that. So interesting chain of vulnerabilities to put a spoofed package via Ruby Gems. And infrastructure. Back then, when I was developer, I remember we had just, we switched release mode in Visual Studio, and we set our app to some network disk. We copied the binaries, basically. Now you have a lot of tools in CI/CD servers and infrastructure. Just one example from PHP from last year. They learned that they have 2 malicious commits done, probably via compromise of their Git service. Those are 2 commits, and just 2 quick things I want to point out. Here we have a zlibc class, because PHP is in C and zlib is compression, and from we are now dealing with HTTP here. So that's first thing you want to pay attention to. And then what's happened here? They check a user agent. They created a variable. They check user agent. If their user agent starts with zerodium, they will basically execute any code back then, the string as a PHP. So this is like very easy to spot a backdoor. This is the owner of Zerodium. Zerodium is a company who buys and sells 0 days. And he says it's trolling, of course. And somehow I agree with that. But what's most interesting in this incident is how it was done. So PHP, after analysis, the team behind PHP learned that you could push commits not only via SSH, but also via HTTPS. And it used a different library and different user database. And yes, they found logs, and yes, those commits were made via this mechanism, so HTTPS. What they analyzed, they state that there were too few guesses, because in this log you might see that it's like 401, so probably bad password or something. But the guesses were too few to be this as a successful brute force attack, so probably someone compromised a master PHP net where the user base and passwords were stored. And that's, of course, all of this is quotes from their statement, but this is the best one. This system was running very old code, very old OS, very old PHP version, so something had to go wrong in this case. So this is, yeah, a few lessons to learn about infrastructure and security from PHP. Skipping to summary. In case of libraries, most important thing is to be aware of the attacks are in it. I hope I made you aware of the types of attacks. Make no typos. Yeah, that's funny. Everyone makes typos, but yeah, use tools, either open source or commercial, to detect malicious dependencies. Of course, download it only from official sources. When you're not sure of anything about the library, do not install that. And enable 2FA if you maintain any open source or not project, enable 2FA. One story about 2FA. Both NPM and PyP decided to enforce 2FA for critical projects. NPM said 100, PyP classified 4,000 projects as critical. And yeah, I don't have any data about NPM if it worked. And in case of PyP, those are stats they published. And in case of adoption, I think they're reaching, based on those screens, they are reaching their assumption. But there is always someone who disagrees, and this is a story of atomic rights. There's a library in PyP, which is quite popular. If you see last month download, owner got such email, and he was saying that, hi, your project was made as critical, and we would want to give you a free key to make your account more secure by enabling 2FA. And he said, no, I better delete the library instead. And he deleted that because he was like, he disagrees with 2FA. And he broke a bit of PyP libraries because some of them related to those he deleted. And PyP, in the end, reinstated those libraries, and he archived and stopped dealing with this atomic rights library. This is the quote from him, so I'm not going to worry about your supply chain for free, basically. So enable 2FA, explain it, that is important, and enable 2FA. In case of tools, please repeat after me. I will not download and execute anything from the internet without checking that. Yeah. I will verify checksum or signature or whatever means I have to make sure that this is the one tool and that's it. That's the one thing I wanted. Install again from official sources and update what you already have installed. That's it in case of tools. And in case of your infrastructure, your developer infrastructure, be careful. You have to, at each point in time, you have to know what you have, especially if it's publicly available in the cloud. You have to have good asset inventory. learn from PHP and disable what you don't use, secure everything else, remember to update it frequently to fix issues which are known, and of course monitor at the end. Monitor everything, and especially your developer infrastructure, to make sure that you know what's going on inside your infrastructure, if it's your developers or someone else actually putting out your source code. And that's it. Apologies for the technical problems. If you have any questions, feel free to reach me out.